Oh, AD carry is, to be honest, the hardest role to solo carry on, no doubt, but at the moment some AD carries on the Rift are actually pretty strong and give us all a bit of hope, especially in 11.24 because there are some nice buffs coming in. So in today's video, the Jizz is going to reveal the 10 best ADCs to play in 11.24, and we'll go through the best rune page, the 3 core items, and the summoner spells as well for each pick. Now to make sure you don't miss any of our preseason content, hit that subscribe button down below. We have so much more lined up, and let's get into it. So starting off at number 10, we have one of the best lane bullies in the bot lane, and this is Caitlyn. And what's awesome for Caitlyn in 11.24 is that Riot have semi-reverted the headshot auto attack cancels. So when an enemy champion steps on one of your traps, or you hit them with your caliber net, the headshot you then dish out to them, the animation is actually quicker than it was before. This is something Riot removed completely in 11.23, so thankfully there are some mechanics back on Caitlyn. But that's not all, because lethal tempo is also getting buffed for ranged champions. So the attack speed you're getting per stack is going from 5% to 7%, which is super nice for someone who can really abuse the range like Caitlyn. In the bot lane, there is going to be no one stronger in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the laning phase, and even though you're missing out on a bit of range at max stacks, it's well worth it because you'll be getting to that range quicker. But you might be like, so why is Caitlyn not higher up on this list? Why only number 10? Well, it's simply because she's very easy to kill, and she's also very difficult to pilot. Lots of people think that when you play a champion like Caitlyn, you just auto win lane, which kind of is the case in higher elo because people know how to space and kite effectively, but in lower elos, very few Caitlyn players will actually make use of the range and abuse their opponents. I mean, range doesn't really exist in lower elos, but for sure, if you can play her, and I'd recommend checking out our Caitlyn guide we uploaded around a week ago, then you definitely have a chance of stomping the bot lane. But beating Caitlyn to number 9, I'm actually kind of excited for this pick, and this is Ezreal. And I'm speaking specifically here about Conqueror Ezreal. And you might be like, why on earth are you talking about this when you have lethal tempo and even first strike? Well, the reason I've recommended Conqueror is because it's getting buffed. So the stacking is now lasting 5 seconds, and think about your Mystic Shot. You can actually just keep this stacking by hitting your opponents with Q when it comes off cooldown. So it actually sounds really good for Ezreal just because of this, the synergy with the actual timer compared to your Q's timer. And another reason Ezreal is going to be good is because of the build options you have. Now the build I've recommended here is Divine Sunderer with Mirror Mana, followed by Frozen Heart. Now Frozen Heart is in here because lots of the time in the bot lane at the moment, you're going to be going against lethal tempo AD carries. So attack speed is a really big stat for them. Well, with Frozen Heart, not only is it making you tankier, but it's going to reduce that champion's attack speed. This makes them in the late game a lot less potent and makes them a lot easier to deal with. But beating Ezreal to number 8 on this countdown, this is Jhin. But unfortunately for Jhin, there are no actual buffs this patch because you don't go lethal tempo and you don't go Conqueror. But before 11.24 hit, Jhin was in a good position, and because nothing is changing for him, he is still going to be in a solid position. Now as far as your runes go, it's exactly the same of course with Fleet Footwork, and then as far as your major items go, these haven't really changed either, with Gale Force, Collector, Rapid Fire Cannon. Now you can go Infinity Edge instead of Rapid Fire Cannon, I will just say this, and you'd really want to go with Infinity Edge in games where you don't need the range. But here's the thing, pretty much in every single game, Rapid Fire is going to be super useful, and it's not like you're giving up that much damage. To be honest, most of your damage is going to come from the Collector and the lethality it's giving you, so it's well worth giving up a little bit of damage from IE for a bit of safety with Rapid Fire. But let's say you don't want to play at range. Let's say you want a champion who's amazing against close range team compositions. Well, picking Xayah coming in at number 7 is definitely a good choice, and it's kind of made a mini revival this patch. And Xayah's win rate really dropped in 11.23 because lots of players were testing out lethal tempo, but the fact is that going lethality Xayah with Eclipse and summon areas your keystone, you can see the rest of the rune page on your screen now, this is just straight out better. Now what's important about this setup is that you are maxing your Q first, which Riot have buffed consistently in Season 11, and this hasn't changed thus far in the preseason. And as far as the rest of your items go after Eclipse, we're going Mirror Mana into Serilda's Grudge. This gives you an insane amount of burst damage with your Q and then your E, but sometimes it can be pretty annoying playing Xayah into a long-range team composition. So if the enemy team has champions like Lux and Jace, it is going to be pretty hard to land your feathers and make use of the lethality in your kit. So really when you're against short-range AD carries and melee champions, this is where Xayah can really shine. Now speaking of those ranged champions who might be annoying for Xayah to deal with, coming in at number 6 on this list where you have Kog'Maw with lethal tempo of course, and the great thing for Kog is that lethal tempo is getting buffed. Some more attack speed per stacking, like who is going to complain about this? And the range going down doesn't really affect you that much because you have such good range with your Bio Arcane Barrage anyway. So for a champion who auto attacks as much as Kog'Maw, this is so worth it. And the rest of the rune page is very standard, and as far as your 3 core items go, we're going Shield Bow into Wit's End into Ginsu's Rage Blade. Now Shield Bow is so important because in solo queue, your support probably is not going to peel you, nor are your teammates. So having Shield Bow there gives you the actual 1v1 potential you might need against an assassin like a Zed, and also the survivability because of the shield. Now Wit's End and Ginsu's are really here for the attack speed and the on hit, which harmonizes really nicely with your W. And Kog'Maw at the moment has a really good win rate across the board, so it doesn't really matter what elo you are in, you are going to have a lot of fun on this champion. But probably don't pick him if you have a hard engaged support. It's probably better to pick Kog'Maw if you have a peeler. So let's say Lulu, Nami, Soraka, Sona. This is when Kog'Maw can really shine because his support will be next to him actually protecting it. But what about if your support does actually lock in a Rel or a Leona? Well, picking Ziggs in the bot lane is going to reap the rewards in 11.24 because Archangel's staff is getting buffed. So the total cost is going down to 2,600. This is 400 gold cheaper. And for a spell spammer like Ziggs, this is unreal. When you pair this with Leandra's Anguish and Azonia's Hourglass and whatever else you want to get after that, Deathcap, Morello's, there are lots of options here. It is a very annoying champion to play against. So because Archangels or Seraphs is cheaper now, your mid to late game spike you will reach this earlier. But it might be risky picking Ziggs into a champion with a bit of mobility. So if you're picking Ziggs into champions like Vayne and Lucian, they're going to be pretty hard to hit. But if you're picking Ziggs into a Kog'Maw, into an Aphelios, they should be a lot easier to hit with your spells, and you'll see this in higher reloads even in pro play. This is why Ziggs gets picked. But beating Ziggs to number 4 is one of the best all-around AD carries in this countdown, and this is Ashe, because you can't really go wrong with her. She has a really good laning phase, she has good scaling, and she also brings a lot to a teamfight because of her ultimate, and her slows as well. Now, like lots of other AD carries on this list, lethal tempo getting buffed, this is only a good thing, and when we pair this with approach velocity in our runes, it makes it impossible for the enemy champions to escape, and to be honest, you are the best AD carry at actually stacking lethal tempo and getting to the 6 stacks just because of the slows in your kit with approach velocity. So even though you're losing a bit of range of max stacks, getting to it quicker, just like I've said, is super nice. Now, as far as your items go, exactly the same as Kog'Maw because we have on hit in our kit. So with Shield Bow, Wit's End, and Ginsu's, we have all the damage we will ever need, but we also have the survivability and kite ability with the attack speed to really pop off in those team fights. But maybe you want to play a champion who's even better in the laning phase and one of the best lane bullies on the Rift. Well, picking Draven is probably in your best interest. And one of the great things about Draven is that you have so many keystones to choose from, but the page I'm going to recommend to you guys is actually running with the new Conqueror. Just like Ezreal, because the stacking is back to 5 seconds, it just makes it so more viable. Yes, it's only a second, but Draven loves these extended fights and only gets stronger the longer the fight goes, so Conqueror just makes sense. And I'd really recommend running this when you do have a hard engaged support next to you, because if they can CC the enemy bot lane, getting to max stacks for your Conqueror should be pretty easy. Now, as far as your build goes, we're going Immortal Shield Bow, just like a lot of AD carries on this list, because without it, we are kind of vulnerable. If we do get jumped on, we're probably going to die, so we need that shield. Now, after this, it's all about damage with the Collector, which is going to shred squishy champions, and Infinity Edge, which is going to spike your critical strike chance with the passive, and also the attack damage. It's just the biggest 3-item spike we have. But maybe one champion who can do well against Draven in the laning phase is coming in as the second best AD carry for 11.24, and this is Jinx. And just like Ashe, just like Kog'Maw, just like Caitlyn, Jinx is coming in because of the lethal tempo buff, and at the moment, a bit like Kog, Jinx has a really good win rate across the board. So again, I don't care what elo you're playing in, you can definitely make this champion work, and to be honest, it's really impressive in the bot lane because of the synergy with lethal tempo and your fish bones, because your fish bones auto attacks give you extra attack range, and with lethal tempo it becomes really easy to stack, especially with the movement speed and attack speed you get from your passive, which makes it easier to stick to your target and maintain the lethal tempo stacking. And as far as your items go, I know that lots of people are going Kraken Slayer, but to be honest, I want you guys to go Gale Force because I don't think you need the damage from Kraken Slayer to really make Jinx work. You should already have enough damage with the Gale Force, and the active is so useful when you're evading enemy champions jumping onto you, which no doubt will happen. After this, we need our Zeal item, so we're going with Rapid Fire Cannon instead of PD, which you could go if you think your support is not going to peel you, but again, Rapid Fire is just going to work in every single game because of the range it's giving you. You should be able to stay safe, and then topping this build off with Infinity Edge, this is going to maximize that damage output, and just like Draven, is an amazing spike for Jinx in the mid to late game. But one AD carry, and I'm sure you guys can guess who this is, who trumps all of the others. This is Vayne coming in at number 1, who at the moment has around a 53% win rate, and for a skill-based champion like Vayne to have this high of a win rate, it just goes to show how OP she is. Now, why is she holding the number 1 spot over Jinx and all these other really good AD carries? Well, it's simply because of how she works with lethal tempo, because Vayne's big weakness in the past has been her range. Well, lethal tempo makes up for that and gives her the range that she kind of desperately needs to compete with these other AD carries. Now, the laning phase is still going to be pretty annoying, right? If you're against a Caitlyn or a Jinx or an Ashe with lethal tempo, you are going to cop it, so you have to be patient. Don't feel as if you have to win the lane in the first 5 minutes, but once you get to your Shield Bow Spike, Ginsu's, and Wit's End, that's when you can really get rolling, especially when you hit level 6 and onwards, because you become very hard to hit. And also the mobility in your kit. Think about your passive, the Q. It should be really easy to keep up with enemy champions and actually use the lethal tempo stacking and the range this is going to give you. So those are the 10 best AD carries, guys, for 11.24, and for sure there are other AD carries out there who can work. If we think of Lucian, if we think of Samira, who's been buffed, so her ultimate is no longer costing any mana, and with a Conqueror chain, she definitely makes sense. But for sure, these AD carries are the most consistent and reliable, so let us know in the comments what you think of the countdown. If you did enjoy the video, remember to leave a like down below, and also make sure to check out the GameLeap website in the description and comment section for all your League of Legends needs. And until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the